This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 178 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today is a fun and lighter episode because there seems to be so much heavy stuff going on in the world of travel and the world in general. So I am very excited to bring you this light relief, but still got a few lessons to it episode. It's about interesting plane passengers sitting next to you. Now, I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty common to kind of avoid chatting to the people sitting next to you, well, the strangers sitting next to you on a plane, especially if you're on a long haul flight. You know, you always worry about that danger of getting stuck in a conversation that you just can't get out of when you'd really rather be reading your book or watching TV. And I admit myself to doing this far too many times when really I probably should have taken the risk more often. And that's something that one of my guests will talk about today. I was thinking back about some of the interesting plane passengers I've had sitting next to me, and I remember well, how long ago? Maybe 3 years ago. I probably had just, not been too long doing the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I remember I was flying into Sydney and connecting to Japan, to Tokyo, for a media trip. And we're a bit late coming into Sydney, so I was starting to get a bit stressed. And I had avoided chatting to the woman sitting next to me because I had lots of work to do, and so I was kind of really focused. And then I was starting to look around and figuring out, I'm worried about making my connection. And anyway, because of this, I was, more in a chatty mood. And so I struck up a conversation with her. And she was so nice. I always remember this lovely conversation we had. She was a teacher and she became a podcast listener. So Lorraine, if you're still listening, I still remember meeting you. And that reminded me that I should talk to people more often. I think also we have, I'm as judgmental as the next person, as much as I wish I wasn't judgmental. But I remember very well a horrifying flight I took once. Not the flight was fine. It was just my circumstances. I know exactly that my son was 23 months old at the time, because in Australia, a kid can fly domestically for free up until the age of 2. So I thought I was being so clever to take him with me to Melbourne so I could catch up with all my Melbourne buddies before I had to pay for him to come with me too. On the flight over to Melbourne from Perth, it was great. We had a seat free next to us, easy. So my son at nearly 2, at 23 months, was not a small child. He was tall and had arms and legs everywhere. Anyway, on the flight home, it already started badly because it left about 3 or 4 p.m. And it was delayed a little bit as well. And it was the time when my son probably should have already had a nap but had refused to. So, really bad start. And then I got on and the guy sitting next to me, there was just 2 seats together, was really, really large, the kind of passenger who takes up a bit of my seat as well. And I thought, oh God, and here I am, and I'm going to have, this child on my lap as well. And I thought it was going to be, the flight from hell. And I have to say, in some aspects, it was the flight from hell because my son was kind of tantruming all over the place and, squirming. And I remember at one stage the flight attendants came down with glasses of wine and I took one thinking, I really need this. And then I realized, oh my goodness, how can I hold on to this wine with my son flailing around? So I kind of sculled it and I thought, what must people think of me? But anyway, back to the passenger next to me. Of course, despite my initial prejudice, he turned out to be such a lovely guy. And my son was clutching various toys, toy cars and stuff. And periodically he would drop them. And this lovely man would, without fail, reach down and grab them and give them back to him. And I was so apologetic and he was so kind. So there you go. I am usually wrong about the passenger sitting next to me, so I must bear this in mind. Now, let's start off with Paul Pichugin's story about a passenger who, let's say they just kind of got close while he was flying back from Iceland.
So I was flying back from Iceland, I think it was, and on one of the kind of long haul flights between the other side of the world and Perth. And then I got what I call business class economy, where you have the row of seats to yourself. Economy business class, the other way around. And nobody next to me or the next couple of seats over.
I love that.
Sorry?
I love it when that happens.
Yeah, I usually lay down and go to sleep, which is just brilliant for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nobody there. I nod off, still sitting up, and I don't usually go to sleep until after the meal. And then I wake up as they're kind of coming around for the meal, and there's a young lady who's stretched out along the seats and is got her head in my lap and is cuddling my arm.
and this young lady is a stranger to you?
A complete stranger. I'm flying solo. So it's not often you wake up with a stranger on a flight, but so
oh my goodness.
I'm like, and she's about, I don't know, she looks like she's about 4 or 5 months pregnant. She's not like super heavily pregnant, but also not,
she's clearly pregnant. Yeah.
She's clearly pregnant, clear enough that you may ask when she's due.
Right, got it.
But she's asleep, and I'm kind of like, do I wake her or do I, this is really awkward. And the meal service gets to me at that point, and they ask what I'd like, and I order, and they're like, and something for your partner, and I was just like, I actually don't know her. And they start laughing, thinking I'm joking, because I'm sure they get that joke, total stranger, don't know her. Like, no, really, I don't know her. They're just like, and they just didn't believe me.
Well, she's got her head in your lap, right?
Yeah, it's not a normal situation. And so I kind of I just ordered her a meal. It seemed easier. So getting the meal ready, and the young lady she wakes up and is just like a little bit horrified. Apologetic, and has gone deep red.
I can imagine, poor thing.
And I've got a wife who's been pregnant, and I know there's certain foods to avoid, so I avoided those on the menu and gotten her a nice raucous tea, which is great for pregnant ladies apparently. So I'd ordered her that, and she's just like, "Oh, you're amazing." I'm just like, well, yeah. So she was very apologetic, and then when the staff came back around to collect things, she's like joking with the girl, like, "Oh, your partner here was saying he didn't know you," and she's like, "Actually, I have no idea who he is. This is just
true."
And they still didn't believe it.
Oh no, they didn't believe either of you.
No. Yes, she was highly embarrassed.
Oh, I can imagine, poor
and
thing.
then grateful for the meal.
Oh, I'm especially impressed that, you took into her account, any dangerous foods or anything. That's, next level. I mean, actually just ordering her meal is next level. I'm so impressed.
It just seemed easier than arguing.
Well, yes, it seems like you weren't going to be able to convince them, and I can understand why from their perspective, I suppose. But,
they would get all types,
Yes, yes. So. And the least common of all types would be an actual stranger falling asleep on someone's lap.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so she hadn't gone to sleep like that, apparently. She'd laid down, across the seats, and apparently had gotten lonely and snuggled up while asleep.
Oh, poor thing. Oh, dear. Well, I do remember also when you're pregnant, you can be enormously tired. More tired than you could ever be in any other situation in life. So I can actually, I can well and truly believe that that's what happened with her. So,
no doubt.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I'm sure that she should feel very grateful of all the people to accidentally fall asleep on. She picked you, so I think that was a very good choice.
My wife had a good laugh about it when I got home.
I bet. I just love that story. It's hilarious. From the first moment I heard Paul mention it, I knew I had to nail him down to get it onto the podcast. So thank you, Paul. I kind of have this bizarre hope that poor pregnant lady, who obviously by now has at least one child, is listening and can give us her side of the story. But, oh my goodness, that was a funny one. Now, my next guest today is Laura Waters, and she has an equally delightful story. It's not funny, but it's absolutely just lovely, about a woman she got chatting to on a long-haul flight coming back from South America.
So I was sitting on this flight from Santiago back to Sydney, and this woman sat down next to me, or rather I sat down next to her. And she was in the window seat, and, you know, I'd been doing a lot of travel and I was feeling pretty tired and not really willing to share my little space with somebody else. But anyway, I sat down and she sort of, you know, had her legs spread and she flicked the blind down in two of the windows next to her. So I couldn't see my last views of Santiago. So that was annoying me. And then she reclined the seat to the max and you know, I was just huffing and puffing inside, you know, just don't you know you can't do that, you know, before takeoff?
Yeah, you're going to get told off for that, yeah.
I know. So, you know, I was just simmering away to myself, very grumpily. But then, you know, a couple of hours later, she just started up a conversation and, you know, within half an hour we were best buddies. And she offered to write a poem for me. We had a bit of a chat and we started, you know, spilling a lot of personal beans and about our stories. She was a Brazilian on her way to Sydney to marry her partner. So she was you know, glowing with love and feeling all bouncy. And I'd just recently broken up with a fledgling relationship. And so I was a bit, you know, less happy, but she sort of said, you know, can I write a poem for you? And she just asked me for 5 words that meant something to me. And I can't remember the full selection now. It was something like mountains, love, authenticity, cake. I don't know how cake made its way into the list, but cake made its way in there.
I can understand that. Cake's pretty important. Yeah. I would have chosen chocolate myself, but...
Okay, all right. It just popped in there, so I ran with it. And anyway, she went quiet for about 5 minutes, just tapping away on her phone. And she wrote this poem and presented it to me, and I just knew that she really got me. She got my whole essence. And I just thought it was amazing that from such a brief interaction, we could go from total strangers on opposite sides of the world to having, you know, quite an intimate encounter, really, to share all that information and have a poem written. So, yeah, and we're still Facebook friends to this day. So.
Oh, that was going to be my next question. Are you still in contact?
Yeah, we are, which I just find lovely. I mean, I know it's, you know, the general thing on a plane is don't talk to your neighbours. No one wants to strike up a conversation. And sometimes it does go wrong, but sometimes when you talk to people, it can really make the time fly. And I'm quite interested in other people's stories. And I think, you know, when you're talking to someone that you know you're probably never going to talk to again, it's quite freeing, actually. You can just sort of, it's kind of like a confessional in some way, that you can just chat without consequence and know that you're going to wrap it up at the end of that flight and probably never see each other again. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case with this one, but we're at least in contact, you know, over the internet. So that's nice.
Yeah. It's a special sort of situation, isn't it? Because like you say, you can imagine you'll probably never see them again. And yet you're trapped there for some hours.
That's right.
No one's in a hurry to do anything else.
Yeah.
You know, you've got nowhere to be.
That's it.
So you kind of don't have to think, oh, do they still want to talk to me? Or, where are we going next? Or, I've got to go, or I'm busy, or whatever. It's kind of a unique situation.
Yeah.
Which
but
perhaps
I tell you,
leads
it
to
really
that.
transformed the journey, because there was another lady to our left, and we sort of chatted a bit to her too. And then it just transformed the whole vibe of the flight, because we were friends then, So when you want to get out to the aisle to go to the toilet or something, you don't feel bad. You're just crawling over each other, and it's just a lot more relaxed and just friendly. It's nicer. So
that's
yeah,
perfect. Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, I love this story because I am generally I love to talk to people, but on a plane I generally don't for exactly that reason. Yeah. And yet, when I think back on it, I've had several times where towards the end of a flight, I've got into conversation with people next to me, as we're landing or something, or when I've kind of thought, or we've perhaps both thought, oh, okay, now it's all right now because it won't be long, just in case, in case they're crazy, it's all right. But then I've made some really good connections, and I think, oh, what a shame I didn't start that earlier. So
that's right. I mean, everyone's got a story, particularly when you're traveling overseas. I mean, you've got such a diverse mix of people from all over the world with all different backgrounds. It's a really prime opportunity to connect with other people and hear a different story.
Yeah,
if they're willing. Right. If
of
they're
course,
willing.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. I won't go accosting anyone and saying you must talk to me now. But I mean, I'm always harping on about when you are traveling and you're in a destination, try and find ways to talk to the locals and stuff. So really, I should absolutely apply that to talk to travellers when you're travelling, because anyone who's on a plane on an overseas trip has something interesting going on. No matter what reason they're travelling for, there's a story behind that. So they're undoubtedly going to have something interesting to talk to you about.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Good lesson. Perfect. Chatting to the passenger sitting next to you really is a very unique situation, and I really love how Laura developed this friendship, and to think that she got a poem out of it is, I think, one of the loveliest things I've heard in ages. Now, my final guest today is Dale Neill, and he told me this hilarious story about a woman who was sitting next to him on an interstate flight in Australia. You'll soon realise it must have happened a little while ago, because it was definitely before there were any restrictions on how much liquid you could carry onto a plane.
I get on board an aircraft flying Perth to Melbourne or Sydney, and a young woman gets on board and comes to sit next to me, and she's carrying a plastic bag with about 25 containers of choc milk, which she puts up in the overhead locker. Right. And then she gets one down and opens it. She says, do you want one as well? I said, oh, okay, righto. So we're drinking our choc milk, and she takes a camera out. Now, this is film camera day, so it was a while ago. Mm. And anyway, she's looking at the camera, and her actions are a little bit frenetic, like she's really, really a bit nervous about looking at the camera. So she opens up the back of the camera, and there's the film all exposed.
Oh, no.
And I thought, gee, do I say, look, I teach photography? I thought, no. I just want to have a peaceful flight.
Yeah.
So anyway, she's mucking around with it, and she grabs the cassette out of the back of the camera and pulls all the film out of the camera. Oh, no. And then she's trying to poke it back into the canister, and I'm sitting there just sipping on my choc milk that she's given me. And then she decides that she's going to take the end off the cassette, the metal cassette, and she uses her thumb, and it slices her thumb open.
Oh, no.
Blood squirts everywhere.
Oh, no.
all over her carton of choc milk. And at that stage, the flight steward, the girl comes up and says, can I be of assistance? And says, she's got this blood all over herself, and she's got her film out of the canister. And at that stage, I then I said, can I help? I'll put the film away for you. So, But after that, it was a safe journey for the rest of the way.
What was all the choc milk for? Did she consume more of it? Or
I'm not sure. She did. She drank 2 or 3 cartons on the way over. I'm not quite certain what the purpose of that was.
It's not going to be very cold by the other end of the other side of Australia.
No, that's right.
Oh, gosh. Oh, wow. Only you, Dale, would sit next to someone like that.
Yeah.
Oh, dear me. The people you meet. Well, there you go. I kind of have no more words for that story. That's kind of just one of those bizarre things. And Dale is the kind of guy who these bizarre things are definitely going to happen to. He's always in the thick of a good story. So I hope you've enjoyed these intriguing tales of the interesting passengers you can sit next to on a plane. And a big thank you to all my guests for sharing their great stories. First up, I chatted with Paul Pichugin. He's a landscape and travel photographer, and you can find his work at paulpichugin.com. If you have a look at his website, last time I looked, my very favourite spot in the world, Kirkjufell Mountain in Iceland, was the kind of the main picture there. It's my happy place. So it was exciting to see. So go have a look. Next up, I chatted with Laura Waters, and you can find more about Laura at soultrekkers.com.au. And of course, don't forget Laura's awesome book, Bewildered, about her hike from the top to the bottom of New Zealand is also out. I'll leave a link in the show notes. And last but absolutely definitely not least, I chatted with Dale Neill, and you can find more about Dale at daleneill.com.au. The show notes for this episode are at notaballerina.com/178. Don't forget, of course, to come along to the Facebook group for Thoughtful Travellers, because we have a lot of fun there and a lot of interesting discussions. There's a link in the show notes, or you can just search for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook. So I hope you've enjoyed a bit of a light relief, back to something a little bit heavier next week. But until then, thank you very, very much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.